Welcome back to What If Factory, everyone. It's me again, Steve Robbins, the crazy Asian guy. I'm shaking with excitement about what we get to learn today at the factory. We'll be taking a look at the inner workings of this thing in your skull called the human brain. The brain is an ultra-complex piece of machinery that can help us do amazing things. Yeah, the Chia Pet is pretty amazing, but I was actually referring to something a little more amazing.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The brain that figured out how to get humans safely to and back from the moon, or even land a rover on Mars, can also lead us to flat out be stupid. Good. Ow! I need a moment. That's better. Today we're going to see how the brain can prevent us from optimal performance in a world filled with human differences. You know, a world of diversity. We're going to look at how we may not be as open-minded as we'd like to be. In fact, we're going to discover that the brain has a tendency to be very closed or narrow-minded, much more than we realize. Ready to open your brain to closed-mindedness?
Go ahead. Make my day.
Okay, Clint. Let's start out with some basics. Research has revealed that the brain operates on an efficiency principle. In other words, your brain is more poly than rocky.
So I want to tell you something. This is coming straight from the heart, Paula. And I mean this. You're just a jealous, lazy bum.
Yeah, your brain from one perspective is a little on the lazy side, kind of like Polly. From another perspective, and more positively stated, your brain is an efficient machine, only using as much energy as required. To better understand this, you need to know a few basic things about the brain. In the average human adult, the brain accounts for about 2% of the body's mass, but it's an energy hog, requiring and consuming about 20% of the body's energy. Compared to any other part of the human body, the brain consumes a disproportionate amount of energy. Indeed, your brain cells use about twice as much energy as any other cell in your body.
Surely you can't be serious.
Really, it does. And don't call me Shirley. You put all those brain cells together, and in total, your brain uses enough energy to power a 40-watt light bulb for about 80 years.
Inconceivable!
Yes, Vincini, and this isn't fake or imaginary energy we're talking about. It's real energy in the form of glucose. How many of you have noticed that you get very tired after having to concentrate and focus for an extended period of time? Yes, thinking is hard work. Powering synapses and neurons requires lots of energy. It's not that each neuron or synapse requires much energy, it's that you have lots of them. Approximately 100 billion neurons and 10 to the 15th synaptic connections. If your brain doesn't get the glucose it wants, it becomes ornery and upset. It gets back at you by not learning very well and forgetting things.
Man, this is even more intense than that time I forgot how to sit down.
Forgetful lately? Anyway, research has shown that when your brain lacks glucose, it negatively impacts an area of the brain called the hippocampus, where learning and memory take place. It also has adverse effects on focus, attention, and even willpower.
Now this all better be here when I come back.
Yeah, of course. I can control myself. I'm not even sorry.
Joey, Joey, Joey. So the next time you eat that second piece of cake like Joey, or forget your spouse or partner's birthday, just blame it on your lazy brain and a lack of glucose. Probably won't help you get out of the doghouse, but you'll sound pretty smart using words like synaptic connections and hippocampus. And while we don't have time to get into the details, let me purge a thought that might be running in your head right now. You can't lose weight by thinking really hard. So how does the brain's quest to conserve energy lead to closed or narrow-mindedness? Well, the constant pursuit of energy conservation navigates you to these places called comfort zones. Yep, you love your comfort zones. Comfortable people, comfortable places, and comfortable ideas. Think of a comfort zone as a physical or mental space where things are familiar, with familiar being the key word. Why, you ask? Let's see. If I were to do an fMRI scan on you, and during the scan I showed you something new and novel, as I looked to see what was happening in your brain, this is what I'd likely see. Scary, huh? Unless you're a believer. No, I would see this. In the areas of the brain that process that particular type of information, I would see a lot of pink and red, indicating there's lots of blood flow to that area. More blood means more glucose and oxygen, more energy. Yes, when you encounter something new and novel, when you encounter something different and unfamiliar, your brain is fundamentally asking, what is it? How do I make sense of it? Is it a threat? In asking and trying to answer those questions, your brain must use lots of energy, something your brain doesn't want to do on a regular basis. So, might this be a factor in explaining why we tend to surround ourselves with people who are like us, listen to ideas that sound like our own, or why we tend to resist change and have a fear of the unfamiliar? In short, why we lean towards being closed or narrow-minded instead of open-minded? Think about that, but not too hard. That requires way too much energy. So, let's review what we learned today at What If Factory. First, we learned that the brain operates on an efficiency principle, always trying to conserve energy. For its size, it consumes lots of glucose, a lot of energy, enough to power a 40-watt light bulb for about, how many, remember? Yeah, 80 years. Second, we learned that when we encounter something new, our brain will use lots of energy to attempt to figure out what it is, trying to decide if it's a threat or not. Finally, we learned that in its efforts to conserve energy, our brain will try to navigate us to our comfort zones, mental and physical spaces where things are familiar. It tends to dislike the unfamiliar, despise uncertainty, and resist change. In short, it naturally doesn't want or like to be open-minded. Well, that's it for another edition of What If Factory. I hope we were able to shed some light on why all of us tend to be less open-minded than we'd like. Take what you learned and try to help yourself and others avoid the trap of closed-mindedness by, for example, getting out of your comfort zones. I'm Steve Robbins, the Crazy Asian Guy, reminding you to be less certain and be more curious. Until next time, see ya! Yeah, your brain from one perspective is a little lazy. Is a little on the lazy side. In the average human adult brain, in the average human adult, their brain accounts. Yes, Vincini, and this isn't fake. Oh, I gotta. Approximately 100 billion near. If I were to do an fMRI.